As Iroma was washing the feeding bottle, she heard a strange noise coming from the room. She thought it was just the wind or the house settling, but then she heard it again, a faint whispering sound. Iroma's heart started racing as she quickly dried her hands and rushed back into the room. In the village of Etiti lived a woman named Azoka. Her presence was as quiet as the morning mist that settled on the fields each day. Aged, with deep piercing eyes that seemed to hold stories untold, Azuka was a mystery to the villagers. Azuka's routine was as predictable as the rising sun. Each morning, before the first light kissed the horizon, she would emerge from her modest hut on the outskirts of the village. Her footsteps were steady, her expression stoic as she made her way to the farm. A sturdy basket was always slung across her back, the weight of which seemed inconsequential to her strong frame. No one knew exactly why Azoka never married or had children. Some whispered that she had once been in love with a man from a distant village, but he had been lost to war. Others speculated darker reasons, hinting at curses or ancient family feuds. But Azuka never offered any explanation, and the villagers eventually stopped prying into her past. What intrigued the villagers most was Azuka's solitude. She never joined in the communal gatherings or celebrations that marked life in Etiti village. While others exchanged laughter and shared meals, Azuka remained apart, her presence almost ethereal against the backdrop of village life. It wasn't just her isolation that set her apart. It was the air of secrecy that surrounded her. Yet, despite her solitary ways, Azuka was an integral part of the village's rhythm. Her skills in farming were unmatched. Her hands seemed to coax life from the earth itself. The villagers rallied on her produce, which was always abundant and of the finest quality. In return, they respected her space, understanding that Azuka's bond with the land ran deep and personal. But behind her veil of silence and the daily trek to the farm lay a secret known only to Azuka herself. It was a secret that cast a shadow over her every step. Despite the newfound understanding and respect for Azoka in the village of Etiti, there remained an undeniable aura of mystery that surrounded her. Children, especially the youngest ones, who were not privy to the nuances of village dynamics, still shied away from her presence. Whenever they caught sight of Azoka in the farm or on her way to the market, they would whisper among themselves, their voices tinged with a mixture of fear and fascination. "There goes the woman who never smiles," one child would whisper to another as Azoka passed by. "Why doesn't she ever smile?" Another would ask, her curiosity outweighing her apprehension. The elders of Etiti tried their best to dispel the children's fears, offering gentle reassurances that Azoka meant no harm. They spoke of her dedication to the farm, her unparalleled skill in farming, and the quiet generosity that often went unnoticed. Yet, despite their efforts, the children's perception of Azoka remained colored by her solemn demeanor and the lingering tales of her past. One afternoon, as Azoka made her way back from the farm with a basket brimming with freshly harvested vegetables, she encountered a group of children playing by the village well. Their laughter echoed through the air, a stark contrast to Azoka's usual silence. At the sight of her approaching, however, their mirth quickly dissolved into nervous whispers. "It's her," one of the older boys muttered, nudging his friends to hush. Azoka paused a few paces away from them, aware of their wary gazes upon her. She set down her basket gently, her movements deliberate yet unthreatening. "Hello, children," she greeted them softly, her voice carrying an unexpected warmth. The children exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of how to respond. They had never been this close to Azoka before, let alone spoken to her. Azoka tried to force a smile and come closer to them, but they all took to their heels out of fear. Families cherished the tranquility and close bonds that defined their community. Etiti village only hear whispers about missing children in their neighboring villages. At first, the villagers thought it was just a rumor, a mere whisper of a problem that didn't really exist. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the reality of the situation became impossible to ignore. It started with one child, then another, until a pattern emerged, a haunting reality that struck fear into every parent's heart. As the days went by, the village of Etiti was plagued by a mysterious phenomenon. Children began to vanish without a trace, leaving their parents and the community in a state of panic. Children would go to bed at night only to disappear by morning. Some were taken from their homes, while others vanished while playing outside. The villagers were baffled, and fear gripped the community. What they didn't know was that behind Azuka's everyday journey to the farm, an evil woman was lurking in the shadows. Azuka, who had always been a recluse, was not what she seemed. She had a dark secret, one that she had kept hidden for years. As the children disappeared, the villagers began to suspect each other. Accusations flew and tensions rose, but no one suspected Azuka, the quiet and reserved woman who kept to herself. Suspicion grew. People thought of spirits in the forest taking children. What they didn't know was Azuka was the one behind it all. Long ago, Azuka had learned dark magic and made a pact for power. She hid her secret well, blending into village life by day and stealing children by night. Azuka had a special power that made her invisible. She could appear and disappear at will, which made her the perfect thief. But this power came with a warning. Never let anyone see you while on a mission. Azuka had learned this the hard way. One time, she had been on a mission to steal a valuable artifact, and she had let her guard down. Someone nearly saw her, and she had barely escaped with her life. Since then, Azuka had been extra careful. She would only appear and disappear when she was sure no one was watching. She had honed her skills to the point where she could do it in a split second. But Azuka's power was not just about appearing and disappearing. She could also manipulate the shadows to her advantage. She could blend into the darkness and move around undetected. As Azuka continued her missions, she began to realize the full extent of her powers. She could do things she never thought possible, like teleporting short distances and creating shadowy illusions. At first, Azuka would sneak into neighboring villages and steal people's children. She would then take them back to her house on the outskirts of the village and slaughter them. After that, she would sell the vital parts to wealthy politicians in exchange for money. These politicians were corrupt and didn't care where the children parts came from, as long as it was fresh and served their selfish purpose. Azuka's hatred for children was a deep-seated one rooted in her own painful past. She had never been able to bear children of her own, and this had filled her with a sense of resentment and anger. Instead of seeking help or support, Azuka had turned her anger outward, targeting the very thing she felt she could never have: children. She began stealing babies, not for money, but out of a twisted desire to punish others for their fertility. The money she received from selling the babies was merely a bonus, a way to fuel her own twisted desires. And so, Azuka's house became a repository for all the wealth she had accumulated from her evil activities. The small room in her village house was packed to the brim with gold, jewels, and other precious items. It was a stark contrast to the rest of her humble abode and a testament to the depth of Azuka's depravity. One day, a woman named Iroma was bathing her newborn baby early in the morning. She had been childless for years and was overjoyed when God finally blessed her with a baby. As she gently washed her baby's soft skin, she felt a sense of peace and happiness. After she was done bathing the baby, she placed him on the bed to go wash the feeding bottle. in the kitchen with warm water. As soon as Iroma left the room, Azuka appeared out of nowhere. She moved swiftly and silently, her eyes fixed on the baby. She reached out and scooped up the baby in her arms. The baby, sensing a new presence, stirred slightly, but Azuka's touch was soothing and he settled back into a peaceful sleep. As Iroma was washing the feeding bottle, she heard a strange noise coming from the room. She thought it was just the wind or the house settling, but then she heard it again, a faint whispering sound. Iroma's heart started racing as she quickly dried her hands and rushed back into the room. With the baby secure in her grasp, Azuka turned and disappeared as suddenly as she had appeared. Iroma, oblivious to the danger that had just unfolded, returned to the room, humming a soft tune. She approached the bed, expecting to see her baby lying there, but instead, she was met with an empty space. Confused and alarmed, Iroma searched the room frantically, calling out her baby's name, but there was no sight of him. The baby was gone, and Iroma was left with a sense of dread and panic. She rushed out of the room, shouting in her loudest voice and searching the entire house, but there was no sign of her baby. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The villagers gathered. Women were crying and consoling Iroma, who couldn't be consoled. Azuka appeared at the back of her house, her eyes fixed on the window of her room. She tiptoed towards it, trying not to make a sound. She had the baby in her arms, and she knew she had to get him inside quickly. As she approached the window, a little boy suddenly popped out from behind a bush. He was playing hide and seek with his friends and had been hiding in the bushes. He saw Azuka with the baby and his eyes widened in surprise. "Thief! Thief, oh!" the little boy shouted at the top of his lungs. "Come, oh, come quick!" Azuka's eyes widened in panic as she realized she had been seen. She tried to quickly enter the room, but the little boy's shouts had already alerted the neighbors. A man ran to the scene. Iroma's baby was rescued. The villagers started gathering at the scene, their faces filled with rage and anger, and Azuka was taken to the village square to explain what she did with the babies she stole. Azuka stood in the center of the square, her eyes cast down in shame. The villagers surrounded her, their voices demanding answers. "What do you do with the babies you steal?" one villager asked. Azuka hesitated, knowing she had to tell the truth. "I sell them to wealthy men and politicians who use them for rituals in a faraway land," she admitted. The villagers gasped in shock and outrage. "Why?" someone asked. "Because I hate babies. I hate children. They shouldn't live. They all deserve to die." Azuka shrugged. The villagers were horrified. "How could you do such a thing?" one woman asked, her voice trembling with anger. Azuka looked up, her eyes filled with fears. "I did what I had to do to get rid of them," she said. The villagers were shocked. "You are a monster. You deserve to die." The villagers were outraged and disgusted by Azuka's actions. They couldn't believe that one of their own had been stealing, killing, and selling their children. They judged her harshly and demanded that she be punished to the fullest extent of law. The villagers handed Azuka over to the authorities, who took her into custody. She was charged with multiple counts of kidnapping and human trafficking. The trial was a sensational one, with the entire village turning out to testify against Azuka. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and in the end, the judge had no choice but to sentence her to life imprisonment. As Azuka sat in her cell, she realized that her actions had finally caught up with her. She had thought she was above the law, but now she was facing the consequences of her crimes. The villagers were relieved that justice had been served, but they knew that the scar of Azuka's actions would take a long time to heal. They vowed to never let anyone like Azuka into their community again.